Do you pay your taxes like a good citizen? Because if you don't, I will be reporting you to the IRS. But if you do, and you're sitting there wondering, what the hell does the government even spend its money on? I have some good news. When the big guys in charge aren't busy funding wars in countries you can't find on a map, they're getting paid six figures to plan for the zombie apocalypse. And not in a fun, gimmicky kind of way. There is an actual US military document called ConPlan 888 for what to do when zombies inevitably rise up and try to eat your tax dollars. The whole thing starts by assorting zombies into types. There's pathogenic zombies, radiation zombies, vegetarian zombies, and my personal favorite, chicken zombies. The chicken zombies are the only ones that actually exist, by the way. They came from botched mass euthanasia attempts at farms where chickens that were supposed to be called using carbon monoxide didn't actually die and clawed their way back to the surface after being buried. Not sure how a bunch of chickens could pose a national threat, but hey, the chance of that happening is not zero. Much like any other military plan, this one has phases. First, they shape the environment, which is basically stocking up on supplies and making sure the Wi-Fi still works. Then, they deter, which is just a fancy way of saying, look scary and hope nobody panics. That probably won't work when there's a million undead chickens trying to eat you alive. So next, they seize the initiative, meaning it's open season on zombies. And when it's all over, the soldiers hand back control to the same people who ignored the first warning signs and hope they don't mess it up again. The next one is about alien invasion. Yeah, believe it or not, the US has a playbook for this too. It's called Operation Beam Them Down. Step 1 is detection. NORAD watches everything that moves above Earth's atmosphere. So if something non-human starts doing warp speed donuts over Kansas, it gets flagged. That data goes straight to the Pentagon. And then the real fun begins, figuring out if it's friendly or if it wants to turn us into souvenirs. If it's friendly, out comes the first contact framework. A team of scientists, linguistics, and diplomats desperately try to say hello without causing an intergalactic incident. If it's hostile, though, that's containment mode. The Air Force and Navy scramble fighters. FEMA yells at people to stay inside and not post it on TikTok. And the president gets escorted to a bunker that we're not supposed to know about. And then the generals whip up engagement protocols that basically translate to try diplomacy first. And if that doesn't work, lasers. I love that even in an alien invasion, the government still wants paperwork first. And that somewhere out there, a Space Force guy is practicing how to say, please don't vaporize us in Morse code. But, you know, at least they have a plan. Step 1, find them. Step 2, talk to them. And step 3, if that fails, aim higher. Now, you might think this whole what-if planning obsession is just an American thing. But no, the lads from the North once decided they wanted, you know, the madness too. Yeah, Canada, the world's objectively nicest country, had a plan to invade the US. But before that, speaking of the Canadian military, this video is sponsored by War Thunder. War Thunder is the most comprehensive free-to-play military combat game that just so happens to be available right now on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and mobile. You can play massive battles across land, air, and sea with over 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships from over 10 different nations, ranging from the 20s to modern day. This game is ridiculously comprehensive. It's got incredibly detailed vehicles, realistic graphics, and authentic sound effects. My favorite part is that they don't use hitboxes or health bars. They realistically apply damage to vehicles. If you get shot in the gas tank, the truck's going to explode. Shot in the wing, and you're going for a spin. You can play with over 95 million players, and with this unmatched amount of content to discover. This is the best game for fans of military history. And just you wait for the best part. If you use my links in the pinned comment or video description, new and returning players on PC or console who haven't played in the last 6 months will get a massive bonus pack that is actually loaded with cool stuff. Among other things, you'll get multiple premium vehicles, the exclusive vehicle decorator, Eagle of Valor, 100,000 silver lions, and 7 days of premium account time, all for free. But it's only available for a limited time, so make sure to grab it. Again, click the links below to play War Thunder for free on PC, consoles, or mobile, and claim your bonus pack. Go obliterate some vehicles. Okay, back to Canada. In 1921, while everyone else was recovering from World War I, the Canadian military sat down and went, "Okay, but what if the US suddenly hates Britain again? What's our move?" Thus was born the wonderfully unhinged masterpiece known as Defense Scheme Number 1. It was cooked up by this guy called Lieutenant Colonel James Buster Southernthurland Brown. And yes, the man's nickname was Buster, which feels fitting because this guy was always ready to start busting loads of chaos across the border the second the war kicked off. The logic was Canada couldn't actually beat the US, but maybe, just maybe, it could buy time for the British Empire to sail over and save their maple bacon behinds. So Brown proposed a lightning-fast hit-and-run campaign. The plan was simple. If America ever went to war with Britain again, Canada would hit first. No warning, no hesitation. They'd send troops across the border, blow up bridges, wreck rail lines, torch supply depots, and sprint back home before the Americans finished breakfast. The logic was that this chaos would stall the US long enough for the British to sail across the Atlantic and save their maple-flavored allies. In Buster's words, "We'll start the fire, you bring the extinguisher." Old strategy for a country whose military budget is roughly the cost of a hockey team. It called for simultaneous raids into Seattle, Portland, North Dakota, Minnesota, Vermont, Maine, Michigan, and New York. Picture it. Canadian soldiers charging across the border, yelling sorry, and setting things on fire. It's absurd, but it was actually written down. The only problem was Canada's army at the time was barely bigger than an average marching band. Britain didn't even approve the plan. Even Canadian generals admitted that it was militarily insane, but strategically necessary. Eventually, the plan was shelved in 1928, probably after someone sobered up and realized that starting World War II with your biggest training partner was bad for business. Still, the fact that it existed proved one thing. You got to be prepared for anything. Speaking of insane plans, Japan had one that made even the zombie plan look tame. All right, this next one's called Cherry Blossoms at Night, and I don't even need to explain what it's about. I mean, it's pretty obvious. Okay, so remember how Canada's Defense Scheme Number 1 was like, let's poke the US and run? Yeah, Japan took that same logic and cranked it up a notch. They basically said, cool, now what if we just unleash the plague? Enter Operation PX, or as the Japanese military poetically named it, Cherry Blossoms at Night. That might sound like a peaceful anime episode about falling in love under the moonlight. But don't let the poetic name fool you. It's a plan to drop plague-infested fleas on the US West Coast. Apparently, when you've lost most of your navy, the next logical move is biological terrorism. The plan was cooked up by the Evercom 731, led by Lieutenant General Shiro Ishii. These guys weren't your typical mad scientists twirling their mustaches. They were testing plague, anthrax, cholera, and a buffet of other nightmares on live prisoners in occupied China. And when they got bored of that, they pitched the idea of using submarines to launch float planes loaded with biological bombs toward California. Their targets: San Diego, LA, maybe Seattle. Basically any city where the weather report didn't include nuclear firestorm. The mission was supposed to launch in September 1945, but Japan surrendered in August. And thank God, because Operation PX would have made CO look like seasonal allergies. Also, the operation's codename, Cherry Blossoms at Night, was meant to symbolize the beauty of Japan's vengeance blooming over America. That's one way to describe mass plague. Hallmark would not approve. The craziest part is after the war. A bunch of the Unit 731 scientists, the guys who made this plan, got immunity from prosecution in exchange for their data. Because apparently, if you commit war crimes but you take good notes, the US government just gives you a high five and a research grant. Next up is Plan Green. Apparently, at one point, the US Army was sitting around and thinking, okay, but what if Mexico invades? Yep, that's right. The same country that exports tacos and tequila was once considered a full-blown military threat. Enter Warplan Green, America's, oh no, they're coming for Texas strategy from the 1910s to 1930s. Who was part of the old color-coded war plans where the US had contingency blueprints for fighting literally everyone? Warplan Red Britain, Orange Japan, Black Germany, Green Mexico. Now, in fairness, this wasn't totally out of nowhere. Back then, Mexico was going through the Mexican Revolution. Pancho Villa had just raided across the border, and the US had already invaded Veracruz once. So, the Pentagon thought, all right, let's just be safe and make a plan in case history decides to speedrun the apocalypse. The idea was simple. If Mexico invaded, the US would mobilize the National Guard, fortify the southern border, and counterattack hard. Troops would surge out of bases in Texas, Arizona, and California, punch deep into northern Mexico, and seize railways, oil fields, and key cities like Monterrey to cut off the invasion at its knees. Basically, the strategy was let them cross the line and then take the line and everything south of it. Of course, no one actually expected to use it. It was more of a keep busy during peacetime project. Bureaucratic cardio. By the 1930s, Roosevelt's good neighbor policy made the idea obsolete, and War Plan in Green was tossed into the filing cabinet of plans we made when we got bored. But it's still insane that it existed. America literally had blueprints for fighting almost everyone on Earth. Red, orange, black, green. There was even a gray one for the Caribbean. And honestly, that's the funniest part. Every one of these plans comes from the same energy. Some guy in an office going, okay, but what if Zimbabwe invades? Maybe that's comforting though. Somewhere out there, professionals are prepared for any scenario like zombies or aliens or Canada. Anyway, big thanks to War Thunder for sponsoring. Play for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, or mobile using my links below. New or returning players will get a massive bonus pack with premium vehicles, currency, and more. Subscribe.